Now we've talked about the keystone previously in this scenario, and that's the disc. It has to deal with a lot of force. So how does it actually do that? Well, it's because it's made of tough stuff. Both it and the surfaces of the TMJ are covered in fiber cartilage, which is meaning that they're very durable coating that can deal with force and has qualities that allow it to kind of repair. Now, there's more to it than that, but you can find that stuff in the Anki cards. So the disc deals with making sure that the surfaces fit together well, keeping the area lubricated so that friction is good and that the movement is good. It deals with enduring and dispersing all the forces coming into this area. And finally, it just stabilizes the area. But how does it stay in place? Let's talk about what around it keeps it in place. So where is the disc attached? You see, it's attached on either side of the football down to the jaw itself, down to the bone underneath it. We're close to that neck area. This is to keep it snug and against that jaw. But it's not attached on either sides to the capsule that surround this entire structure, this entire joint, because it needs to be able to stay on the jaw, yes, but it needs to be able to move within this space because it's going to have to slide. This means that it now can nicely rotate and stay in place, but also slide. However, on the front of it, it's attached to both the capsule and that superior head of that muscle that's in front of it. But why? Because this keeps the disc from moving too far backwards. We have it nice and snug from side to side, but we don't want it to move forward or backwards relative to the jaw. So what is it that might pull it back? Well, that's this really nice fleshy and sort of elastic stuff back here. This area back here, it has once again a superior and inferior portion to it. The inferior portion is much more dramatically inferiorly pointing down, and it acts sort of like a tether. It's sort of like the strap under the chin for a helmet. In this scenario, that helmet is the disc on top of the jaw. So its job is also similar to that of those front muscles, is that it also doesn't want the disc to go forward. These are now acting sort of a balancing act. They don't want the disc to go too far forward or go too far backwards. We want to keep it on the jaw. That's the most important thing here. The superior part, well, this structure is more elastic in nature. It acts sort of more like a bungee cord. So as the disc goes further and further forward as it's sliding, this is going to stretch and stretch and stretch and then recoil back. This helps keep the disc in place, but it also helps reset it nicely. What's really cool about this is if this was a stiff cord, the disc wouldn't be able to move forward. You wouldn't be able to have that sliding. So now it has the benefit of going down that water slide, but because it's elastic, it's able to pull it back and it's able to recoil. So let's recap. Above the disc, it's a quite lax, lots of movement because you have to be able to slide. Below the disc, it's really snug, kept down, keeps the disc on the jaw. That's the most important thing. And also it makes sure that the jaw is able to swing on it and it keeps a stable base for it. This is all mostly done by the sides of the disc via ligaments onto the jaw. And then you have the counter pulling of this muscle and capsule in front and this sort of fleshy tissue in the back to keep it in place in this sort of sagittal plane. All of this just trying to make sure that it doesn't pop off. We never want the disc to pop off the jaw. Now there's one more important ligament that we should mention in this concept video, and that's this thick lateral one. It sort of runs horizontally and slightly oblique, and it's on the outside of the disc and outside of the jaw itself. It can serve as sort of a suspension. It's going to limit rotation possible, but it's also going to make sure that that condyle doesn't go too far posteriorly. And it stabilizes this lateral aspect as well. So it doesn't let it rotate too much during opening. It doesn't let the jaw go back too much. It kind of cinches it. And it also makes sure that it doesn't go too much to the side. Let's talk about where it gets its nutrition. So where does this disc and the joint get the nutrition from? Well, it's dealing with a lot of force in this area. So what allows it to heal up and keep doing its job day in and day out? This joint itself is a synovial joint. And that's this rich sort of nutrition as blood brings the nutrition into the synovium. It's kind of just flushing the whole area out. It's also highly innervated, meaning that there are lots of little nerve endings and sensors all in this area. And anytime you have a structure that deals with delicate movements, there better be a lot of nerve endings because that will give us the input and output to be able to perform this sort of task. Well, what about the disc? Well, if it had a lot of blood directly to it or nerves all throughout it, then it couldn't really do its job. You see, structures that take that sort of pounding, they shouldn't have a lot of nerve endings, or else it's going to start to be painful all the time. So the way structures like this, which you have a couple in your body, adapt is that the outer rim of it is going to be the innervation portion, where all the nerve endings and blood supply is going to be, but the center is going to be more just dense, durable stuff.